Hello, I'm Ralph Rio with ARC Advisory Group, and we're here today to talk about industrial IoT and how it can improve maintenance, operations, and sales. This particular presentation was sponsored by L&T Infotech, who provides services for implementing IoT, among other things. We need now to separate a little bit the consumer IoT from the industrial IoT. Here we're talking about IoT that's driven by clear business benefits. It's a good thing we have consumer IoT because it's provided the economies of scale that makes it less expensive and lowers the risk of implementing IoT in industrial environments. Now, ARC does a variety of research, and one of the things we do is end user surveys. This particular survey was around IoT and asked a question about what are the drivers for IoT. And we find it falling into three areas: maintenance, operations, and sales. Maintenance gets improvements in its metrics like reducing unplanned downtime and getting better uptime, a key metric for maintenance. Operations in terms of improving throughput and lowering costs, and sales in terms of increasing revenues. All very key metrics for each one of those groups of people. Now, let me talk about maintenance first. On this slide, we're now talking about maintenance. On the left side of the slide, we have a maturity curve that goes from reactive, preventative, to predictive and prescriptive. So most people are around the reactive and preventative maintenance. Now, there's a core problem with preventative maintenance in that it only applies to 18% of the assets because, as you can see on the right side of the slide, only 18% of the assets have a failure pattern that increases with age or usage. 82% of the assets have completely random failure patterns. And to improve the reliability of that equipment, you need industrial IoT. And to monitor the health of the equipment and to predict when it will fail. And that provides a means to reduce unplanned downtime for that 82% of the assets that have a random failure pattern. Industrial IoT is required to include the reliability of those assets. Now next, I want to talk a little bit about operations. Here, most people have a database, central database for the plant. Either it's historian in the case of the process industries or a timestamp database for the discrete industries. And typically that's attached to the process control equipment, and as a result is typically populated with process data, things like temperature, pressure of the materials. Now, industrial IoT allows us to include data from the equipment. So now we can combine process data and equipment data to achieve higher reliability of the equipment. Now, maintenance and operations are not totally disconnected, but things can get lost between those two groups. So we highly recommend that any alerts be created be automatically transferred to the maintenance planner to be approved and scheduled. And this integrates both the operations and maintenance, or to put it another way, the IT and the OT. The OT in the form of the process control equipment and the IT in the form of the EAM system for improving the reliability of both the process and the equipment for better asset performance management. The third area that I'd like to talk about, we're switching gears a little bit. Before we were talking about owner-operators of plants, whether it be maintenance or operations. Now we're talking about people who make equipment, the OEM. And on the left side of the slide, we have a maturity curve for the equipment manufacturer. Start off with making the equipment intelligent and connected. Then the next step is to start collecting data from equipment in the field, operating data, and this can be used to improve the design of the hardware, the equipment, and gain a competitive advantage and grow market share for the hardware side of the business. The third step is when we start monitoring the health of the equipment for the customers and selling services for asset health monitoring and giving them alerts when things start to look like they're going bad. You could also send your own field service technician, or maybe a field service technician from a dealer or distributor to do the repairs for your customer. And this provides a value-added business for your customers. And the fourth step on this maturity curve is where you start looking at the business processes and workflow of your customers and look for ways to improve it via software applications. And this then becomes a whole new business around improving and transforming the work processes of your end customers. So we see on the right-hand side a growth in revenues around services from a very small section of the pie to a much larger section. And these are usually very high margin revenue improvements. So now we'll switch gears again and we'll talk about a case story. This particular one was implemented by L&T Infotech and involved 50 oil rigs. Now, when you take oil and gas out of the ground, one of the steps involves cleaning the gas, and that process involves a compressor. Now, unfortunately, the hydrocarbons from the gas will accumulate on that internal parts of the compressor and eventually cause an unplanned failure. Now, what L&T Infotech did is take the sensor data that was and put it in OSI Pi, sensor data from the compressor, put algorithms on top of that to predict when it would fail, giving a 3 or more or 6 month head start in understanding the probability and when it would fail. And now alerts are generated so that that repair can be done during a planned shutdown or turnaround. And that now prevents unplanned failure and the loss of revenue, the extraction of gas and oil that would normally have occurred. This proved to provide a $20 million savings in the first year in terms of improved revenue, and also a 15% improvement in the productivity of that compressor. So we see how high uptime directly affects revenue and improves the revenue of the corporation. You know, going on to the next slide here, we see a wide variety of technologies being implemented for IoT. And never in my career I've seen so many technologies come to fruition at the same time. And these are just the ones around an IoT type of solution. Those folks who are familiar with mechanical design may find this a bit intimidating. And that's why we highly recommend that you engage with a global service provider like L&T Infotech for your IoT type solution. L&T Infotech has a very broad footprint that involves both the engineering side of it, like mechanical design, product lifecycle management, plant lifecycle management. They also have OT type capabilities around PLCs, DCS, SCADA systems, and around the IT side of it, whether it be ERP, EAM, or other type of solutions. And they also have platforms that have been proven and used in previous instances that can be used as part of your IoT type solution. First is Euphoria, which is focused on the upstream and oil and gas industry. It has complex business rules for analytics and maintains data standards across geographically distributed information. Next is Prime Plant, which has analytics for assessing health of equipment inside a plant. It also has root cause analysis for improving equipment reliability. These platforms have been applied in the past and are proven. So we highly recommend that you engage with L&T Infotech for your industrial IoT solution. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found something useful here to help you for your industrial IoT solution planning and execution.